Good afternoon, and thanks everybody for being here today. I got to first say it was a good morning to come to work driving a tractor. That was kind of a fun morning, a beautiful morning out there. Great to do part of National FFA Week here in Missouri. Got to see a lot of young men and women out there wearing blue jackets and appreciate what they do in the future of agriculture and what they represent. So that was kind of a fun morning. The Lieutenant Governor got to join me on that, so I'm not sure all governors do those kind of things in their states, but anyhow, it was fun to do it here in Missouri. And more good news. We continue to see great signs with COVID-19 data in Missouri. We have never wavered on our balanced approach to addressing this pandemic, and the data shows that we are winning the fight. According to the CDC, Missouri is now second lowest in the nation for average daily cases over the past 7 days. Positivity rate and hospitalizations also continue to decline. Our 7-day positivity rate is now 6.1%, and as of today, there are approximately 1,200 hospitalized patients. Just a few months ago, we were over 2,800 hospitalizations. We have made incredible progress in a short amount of time, and I cannot thank Missourians enough for their efforts. We have faced many challenges over the past year, but I assure you that there is light at the end of the tunnel. With that said, we know there are still many questions about when the next tier of Missourians will be eligible to receive a vaccine. Missouri has made a vaccine plan. We have had a vaccine plan since October, and this plan has not changed. We have been very disciplined in following our plan. Today, we are announcing that Phase 1B, Tier 3, will be activated on Monday, March the 15th. This will make approximately 550,000 more Missourians eligible to be vaccinated. With all of these phases, we estimate that over 3.5 million Missourians will be eligible to be vaccinated. Of those 3.5 million, many have already been vaccinated, and approximately 40% will not seek a vaccine. I want to take some time to explain why we are ready to make this important move. To start, throughout our vaccine plan, we have prioritized saving lives first and foremost. This is exactly why we started with our healthcare workers, our first responders, and our most vulnerable population. Tier 3 represents another very important part of our society. There are the workers in many of the industries we depend on each day to keep our day-to-day lives operating normally. This includes our K-12 teachers, child care providers, grocery store employees, energy, food, agriculture, and other critical infrastructure workers that we all depend on every day. As I mentioned, we believe Tier 3 represents about 550,000 people. A full list of Tier 3 categories is available on our website, Mo Stops COVID. You can go to our website now to see the full list. Looking ahead at the coming weeks, we expect to see a continued slow but steady increase in vaccine supply. We heard news this week that the pharmaceutical companies are increasing their production. The federal government is planning to increase our allotment, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is expected to be approved at any time, which will also increase supply. This week, Missouri was allotted more than 120,000 initial doses of Moderna and Pfizer vaccine and 128,500 for the next week. Through the Federal Pharmacy Partnership, more than 233,000 doses of Pfizer and Moderna vaccines have been shipped to CVS and Walgreens, and over 34,000 doses have been shipped to Walmart, Health Mart, and Hy-Vee locations through the Federal Retail Pharmacy Program. The federal government also announced a new Federal Qualified Health Center program. Through this program, the federal government will directly ship vaccines to partnering FQHCs, which provide services to underserved and vulnerable communities. These doses from the federal government are in addition to the 8% of Missouri's weekly allocation that is already being distributed to FQHCs in the state. While supply is still limited, we are expecting slow and steady increases. Activating Tier 3 on March 15th will allow us to continue making progress as supplies increase. There is no doubt that there is still more work to be done, but we are absolutely making progress and seeing results. Just last week, we hit a milestone of over 1 million doses administered. As of this morning, more than 12% of Missouri's population has received at least one shot, and over 350,000 Missourians have been fully vaccinated with both shots. While we strongly encourage Missourians to consider getting a vaccine, we know it's a personal choice, and not everyone who is eligible will want one. In fact, a recent study by the Missouri Hospital Association found that approximately 40% of the people are not likely to seek a vaccine. Currently, we estimate there are about 800,000 Missourians who are eligible and interested in getting vaccinated. But by March the 15th, we expect this number to decrease to less than 400,000. Part of why we are activating Tier 3 on March the 15th is to make sure that there is a steady flow of people who are eligible and interested in getting vaccinated. This allows the vaccinators across the state to continue vaccinating Missourians without having to wait on those who don't want one. Just as we have done throughout this pandemic, we are looking to what is next and taking proactive steps now to be ready for the next phase of this fight. This announcement today will allow Missourians, businesses, healthcare systems, pharmacies, and local health agencies to start planning to vaccinate this next group of Missourians. We will continue working with them before March the 15th to make any changes to our vaccine distribution plans as needed. If vaccine supplies continue to increase, and if we continue to make the steady progress we've seen, we believe that we will be ready to activate Phase 2 within 45 days of March the 15th. This will certainly be based on the data and could change if supply or other conditions do not track as forecast. We do expect to see more positive news coming soon, but for now, we ask the vaccinators working in their communities to plan for March the 15th. We want this to be a smooth process, and it will be up to the vaccinators to start planning now so that Tier 3 populations are ready on March the 15th. We also expect vaccinators to continue following all of the established guidelines. When I say that, we still have to remember there's lots of people out there that haven't received the vaccine yet, especially our seniors, the ones we should all take a back seat to and make sure they get that vaccine. So the next 15 days, a little over 15 days, is important for all of us to do our part, to make sure and get as many of those people that want that vaccine, that they have the opportunity to get it, that they are the priority of this state. But it is also important to make sure these vaccinators have the time to prepare for these next tiers that we're going to open up, that they have space and they have the availability to be able to go from day one once we announce that, once that starts on March the 15th. While everybody's here today, this has been a tough time for everybody in the state. A lot of information out, a lot to grasp from everybody's perspective of the vaccine. Anytime there is a shortage of supply and the demand, which we know is much larger, we continue to see things that doesn't need to be misleading people in this state. There is no division between rural and urban Missouri. That needs to stop. That is totally inaccurate when somebody's trying to say there is more vaccine going into rural Missouri than there is urban Missouri. Anybody that was willing to do their homework, willing to really look at the big picture, will know that hasn't changed since day one. It's not changing today. So when you see a report like yesterday, when you pick Leopold, Missouri, a little town in rural Missouri, in a county that doesn't have a Walgreens, doesn't have a CVS, doesn't have a Walmart, and when you look at that county, that little town, yes, doesn't have much of a population. The only reason it was picked was simply because it had the availability to do a mass vaccine because of space. Everyone from around that region could come in to be vaccinated that. So when you see reports of like we're going to a town of 69 people and we're not administering it to other parts of the state, totally the whole story needs to be told when you say things like that. I'm telling you, as I stand here in front of Missourians today, we are getting that vaccine to St. Louis just as much as we are to the rural area, just as much as we are getting to Kansas City. And the last thing we need is to be there's some kind of divide between rural Missouri and urban. And that is just not true. The reports you're seeing that people are writing about those. The purpose of mass vaccination sites that we are doing accounts for 23% of the state's allotment. We've had people all over this state. We've had it in big cities, little communities, and we'll continue to do that. As I said, this plan has been in place since October. Nothing's changed about this plan. Nobody's going to jump in front of the line. We are going to continue to be disciplined to make sure everybody is treated equally in this state. The one thing I would say that we all need to do a better job of, some of these tougher communities to get to, we need to do a better job getting vaccine to them. And that means the cities need to do a better job. We need to be able to do a better job by sending the National Guard in there to do targeted vaccine. We all have that responsibility. There are a lot of good things happening in Missouri right now. We are excited about the direction we're heading, and we will continue to take a balanced approach, fight COVID-19, and give every Missourian who wants a vaccine the opportunity to get one. Thanks to our balanced approach, we're in a much better position than what was originally projected in terms of COVID-19 and our economy. On Monday, we will have even more good news to share regarding our 2021 budget and withholds. I hope everyone has a good weekend, and thank you all for attending, and God bless. Kelly?
Okay, we'll take some questions. Hi, tomorrow Congress is supposed to vote on federal aid to states. I know you had previously said that Missouri was not in need of this, but if it does receive $2.8 billion from the federal government, do you have any thoughts on where you'd like to see that money go?
Oh, I think we'll accept the money when the money comes in. I mean, what the plan of it is, all states will. I think it's a matter of how that's done at this point. I don't think we know exactly how that's going to be divided up through the cities, the counties, and the state side of it. But yeah, when that portion comes in, I hope with that kind of finances coming in, I'm not sure what everybody will do with it, but I know one thing that I'll be looking at is how can you utilize that money for long-term investments in the state. So.
Governor, you mentioned Leopold. I think that's Bollinger County yesterday. They did have about 2/3 of their shots not accounted for. People didn't take it. They had more shots than they did people. Are you satisfied with the distribution in that regard when they're putting out the call that says, hey, anybody and everybody come because nobody's showing up?
Yeah, you know what? We try our best to make sure those things are not happening, but unfortunately, every little county, every little town has a health department. Some are much better equipped to handle situations like this than others. Probably shouldn't have put that out there the way they did. But the whole fact of it is, whether you're in rural Missouri or when you're in urban Missouri, if you go by what we're saying in the urban areas, and just take St. Louis because that seems to be the region, they'll also tell you a lot of people from St. Louis are going to rural Missouri to get vaccinated. So their numbers are really probably more than what we're estimating them to be as far as what their allotments are. So, I mean, if you look at it from that way also. But the point we're trying to make, I don't care whether you're in Bollinger County or whether we're in St. Louis City, we want the people that can get that vaccine in their arms the best we can. The priorities are the most vulnerable citizens, 65 and the ones with health care. And it's not a perfect system, but I'm telling you the vast majority of the people are trying to do the right thing here. It's just a difficult process to go through when you have such a limited supply and you have such a big demand, wherever you go.
You don't feel like that's wasted vaccine? In the multiple rural counties yesterday had more vaccine than people showing up to get the shot. You don't worry?
I'm not aware of that. What you're telling, you know more than what I evidently do, because I don't think that's the case at all.
So St. Louis is in Region C, which is 37% of the population of Missouri. It's got 35% of the vaccine that's been allotted, which is pretty close. But if you break it down and look at some of the individual counties, St. Louis County, et cetera, as you mentioned, the state, the one dose, 12.3% statewide, right? Well, St. Louis City is 8.4%, St. Charles 10%, Jefferson County 7.5%, which are all metropolitan areas. So there does seem to be this huge disparity still between the rural and the metropolitan areas. So how do we explain that?
Well, the same allotment, whatever that allotment is for that region, they get. Those vaccines go there. Now, I don't know if you're counting senior citizens in there, whether you're counting FQHCs in those numbers when you're saying those numbers. I'm not sure of that. But what I'm telling you, that formula doesn't change. So if you're getting 35 out of 37, that percentage is going to stay the same. In that region, those doses are there.
But you've got the metropolitan areas and then, like I said, very rural areas, which people are clamoring in the city, in the metropolitan areas to get these, and they're driving 2, 3, 4 hours to these rural areas. So there does seem to be an unequal distribution still in a lot of people's minds.
Well, I don't agree with that. I mean, the number of the allotment per the populations, it's a matter of getting it distributed in the arms. And yes, St. Louis has a much larger population, but they get a much larger volume of the doses that we've done from day one. We want that to happen. And I don't think there's been any question that there's a lot more people coming from, as you say, from the St. Louis region or maybe the Kansas City. I mean, I don't keep track of that, but are going out there to rural Missouri and getting a vaccine. You know, the same amount of people wherever you are, the formula is the same wherever it is. It's based on the population where you're at. So there's nobody in rural Missouri getting vaccinated any more than anyone in the urban areas. It's just not happening.
I guess building off of that, the question is about efficiency, right? I mean, you have high throughput hospitals like in Columbia, MU Health, they got 4,000 doses. They did 4,065 vaccinations, whereas when you do these mass vax events in, Mexico, Missouri, or Moberly, you're ending up with hundreds of unused doses. So wouldn't it be more efficient to centralize the doses in places where you have large healthcare infrastructure where they've demonstrated this efficiency?
Yeah, I think we're just trying to make sure those numbers are the same in every region with that. Again, when we do a mass vaccine, what you'll see as we get in this next phase and as vaccine becomes more available, you'll see us probably take the National Guard to an area, I would say, let's just say Kansas City or St. Louis either one. We'll probably put multiple National Guard units in there. We can do a vaccine of maybe 6,000 a day, because that's going to be more efficient than what we're doing now. And we'll be able to put the local, like 100 doses in a local pharmacy in smaller areas. And it's much more efficient. But right now, you simply have to cover the entire state. And it's not, one region shouldn't get more than anyone else. And that's what we're trying to make sure doesn't happen. You know, but I'm telling you, as the doses come in, you'll see us using the Guard much more in the urban area, because we can do much more larger allotments than you can in rural Missouri.
Hello. A House committee has approved a bill that would forgive the overpayments of unemployment benefits. Have you reassessed your thinking on that issue at all, and would you consider supporting something like that?
Yeah, we're going to work with the legislatures. I said that from the beginning, but I don't think we're going to do a blanket policy where we just say everybody gets the money back without having some sort of ability to be able to check in case that system was utilized for fraud or something like that. We got to have a mechanism in there to be able to check that. And if you're talking, I think roughly 42,000, 46,000, there's going to have to be a process set up to how you evaluate that. So, I mean, that's time consuming, and that means somebody's got to be able to have the manpower to be able to go to each one of those returns, you know. But again, you know, I'm more than willing to work with the legislators to find out if there's a way. We just got to balance that a little bit. We just got to make sure we just don't give up.
I will take 2 more questions, ma'am.
Pending the FDA approvals as early as tomorrow for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, is there any word on how fast we can get those doses, or how many?
Well, yes. I think if that all goes through tomorrow, which we assume it will, what we've heard, I think we could have the possibility of ordering that vaccine at the first of the week. Once that's approved, we'll be able to put that order in. I think initially, much like Pfizer, you could see probably, and again, this is what I know at this point, but that could change between now and Monday. But we estimate we may get around 50,000 doses of Johnson & Johnson. However, they have also told us that may decrease after that first initial order. And that's somewhat what Pfizer done when we got that. We got a pretty good number when it first started, and then they backed off of that number as we went forward. But the good news is we're getting more vaccine. So I think with Johnson & Johnson, then it'll be a kind of a matter of how we utilize that vaccine and what is the best resource that we can and the quickest way to do that. So, but all of those things we know are coming. We've got that built into the plan of how that's going to be distributed and how we'll move forward on that.
All right, final question right here. Harrison,
Yes. Hi, Governor Parson. This morning, Cole County had their COVID-19 briefing, and the health director there had kind of mentioned how even when moving to the next tier, they're still trying to catch up with the tier that's open right now. Is there any concern about getting behind? I know you said vaccines increasing, but is there any concern right now about getting behind?
Well, I think there's always that concern when you make these decisions, because you can't finish that first tier until you have to go to the next one at some point. I think the reason we wanted to announce this early, because we're ahead of schedule, one, but we need to make sure everybody's prepared for that. And you can use the teachers, for example. We know that that's a pretty large allotment, but they're going to be very, I think you're going to take, like, I know Truman Health Center, I think, I talked to some of them up there. They have a plan in place how they're going to do the vaccination for teachers in Kansas City, or what they propose at the time. Now, I don't know who will end up be doing it, but the point of it is they now got 2 weeks to prepare for that moment, as long as that vaccine's there to be able to do that. But I think the other thing is you got 2 weeks. If we keep getting the amount of vaccine in that we're getting, plus additional more, you're going to be able to really knock that number down quite a bit. But what you don't want is we don't want to be out there and not being able to use the allotments that we have. So we want to make sure that we have the ability to fill those allotments every day. We're just going to be doing both of them together when that time comes. If you're still in that 65 bracket, you're still going to be on the priorities. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.